Gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in to yet another video. We are going to install the 64 intake from Screamin Eagle. So we have to remove the fuel tank. Well, we don't have to remove the fuel tank, but eventually to get to the injectors and the intake, we'll have to pull out the fuel line and all that other stuff. So I'm going to show you guys how to properly move it per owner's manual. So what we have to do, of course, we have to lift this up, give ourselves enough room to reach the fuel pump connector. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but it's right there, this little wire there. So it is super tight. Here, let me see if I can move the camera a little bit closer. It's this one right here. You guys see it? So there's a little clip on top of that. You just have to push down on it and then pull at the same time. So it is a little tight to get, but you can do it. Also helps not having the bike nice and warm because the heads are hot. But here, let's see if I can pull it out. Let's go ahead and grab something to kind of prop up the fuel tank. It's also easier if the fuel tank is not full as well, because then that's heavy. Here, all right, let's see if this is going to work. A little bit of masking tape right underneath the fuel tank. That's hot. Let's grab the top. There's a clip on the top, and then you pull that out, and then there it is. All right, so now we have disconnected the connector, and then we cycle the battery. I mean the bike. Turn it on. All right, so we turned it on. You can do it twice, but I mean that might be it. I mean there's going to be a little bit of fuel coming out of this thing. All right, so it's like a cup link. You guys know you have to push up and then slide the cup link up. So let's see if we can do that. And then it just comes right out. And there's a little bit of fuel, like I mentioned. So that's the proper way to do it, because I've had somebody mention, hey, you forgot to mention how do you call this, depressurizing the fuel pump. That's how you do it. You remove your connector, cycle it once, don't turn it on. Oh, I guess you can turn it on. I think you are supposed to turn it on. So that's where I messed up. All right guys, so read your owner's manual. Okay, you're supposed to cycle it, turn over the engine 3 times, that way you get the fuel out. So I actually messed up. I was supposed to cycle the crank a couple times, and then that's how you properly do it. So we almost got it, but unfortunately I failed on this attempt. So don't do as I do as I say. All right, crank over the engine 3 times, then you're supposed to remove this. So I messed up. All right, now we got to remove the air filter, and we have to remove all of this stuff again. I've already swapped out the intake. Alright, so like I mentioned before, you don't have to remove the fuel tank. You guys can see that I'm propping up the fuel tank with an old glass cleaner. So that's what I'm putting in there, so I could get to the bolts and the intake right in there. It's a super tight fit, so you have 4 bolts that you have to get to. So that's how I'm propping up the fuel tank. You can use anything like a tennis ball or whatever, as long as you could fit it in there and it holds the tank up. So remember, it'd be better if the fuel tank is empty. So if you want to ride it so it's not as heavy and stuff like that, that'd be a good idea. So let's go ahead and get to the bracket on the back. So we have to remove the bracket on the back so we could get to those bolts. So we would have to remove this bracket so we could get to the bolts to the intake. So let's go ahead and remove those. so now we remove this cable here so we can take out this bracket. You just kind of pull on this plastic right there. That comes out. I like to keep the bolts where the holes go, just in case I lose stuff, because I don't have a shop. I tend to lose bolts, so if I don't put these back, I'm going to lose them. Or just try to remember where they go. You know, try to keep them. You know, try to keep them on the pieces like so. Use masking tape if you have to, so you don't lose these bolts. Because I don't have a place to put all this stuff. And then of course, if you want to, you could also, you know, put the bolts back in where they're supposed to go. Just thread them, you know, halfways. That way they're always going to be where they're supposed to go. You're not spending 30 minutes looking for them. All right. So now that we remove the bracket on the back, now you can see the bolts that we're supposed to get to. This one and this one over here. So let's go ahead and grab our long head Allen ball end long head Allen or hex socket, or whatever you call them. It just makes the job a lot easier if you have those. I'll show you guys right now. All right, so here's the socket, Allen head 1/4 inch hex ball end. If you guys know what these things are called, just leave it in the comments. Ball end hex head socket or something like that, so you guys can see we can fit it in there at that awkward angle. Is this the right one? All right, so it turns out it is a 1/4 inch. It's just that the heads doesn't let the socket sit flush, so you have to break the torque with regular key, and then you could undo the bolts with the ball end socket, so it makes it a little bit easier. So here's the second bolt. Then since we're on this side, we could already unplug this injector, so you guys can see there's a little connector right there. All right, so like I was saying, we have to remove the injector. Remember the colors, keep in mind. All right, if you guys seen a couple installs, I remember I saw Bike and Bird, he put these backwards and he was wondering what the heck's wrong with the bike. Remember, the gray one is your front cylinder, the black connector is your rear cylinder. All right, rear, front. So keep that in mind when you put these back. Remember to put these how they're supposed to go, because your bike's gonna run like so. There's your gray connector, that's your front, and then of course the connector on the other one is on the other side. So let's just go ahead and reach on over. Can we do it from this side? I think we can. Am I on the, I think I got it. There we go. See, we're on it. But I just wanted to show you where you push the connector in to loosen it, right here on this little clip. So you hold it, pull it out. Same thing with your fuel pump connector. So now let's go over to the other side where we have to remove the other two bolts. All right, so we are removing the throttle body because the 64 kit has the throttle body. It's got a Mikuni. It's got a Mikuni throttle body, so I'm not sure if it's that much better, but since it's already provided with the 64, we might as well swap it. So we have to remove the throttle blade control. So there's a little lock here. Let me lower the camera. So you have a little lock right here. You see that? You got to pull that out, and then you gotta, there should be a clip, right? Is there a clip? That's the lock. Or maybe that's it. Nah, that can't be it. There's got to be something holding this down. I think I see it. Yeah, I see it. I think it's right there. There we go. So this is what's holding it down. All right, so if you see that, this little clip, so you could use a flathead, put that in there through there, or unlock and then pinch this and then pull it out. So that's how that comes off. And then now we got to remove this other connector up here. Let me raise the camera back up again. we gotta remove this connector to pull this off. Okay, so now we're gonna pull this up. That's to unlock, just like the other one. You unlock it, and this is your mass flow sensor. I believe that's what they call it. Same thing. You push on that, that pops out. So that's your flow sensor. So we could get to this bolt back here. So this is where it's a tight fit. It's a really tight fit. Alright, so I'm having trouble getting to the this last bolt because the flow sensor is right in the way. So I'll have to pull that off. Alright, so remove this hose. Of course, that's connected to your throttle body. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to get to it. I think I have to remove the flow sensor because there's just no room. It's too tight. So you'll have to remove. You'll have to move these parts anyways, because you'll have to transfer them over to the new intake. So you have to remove these parts anyways. So I'm just gonna remove it so we're not struggling. Not a lot of room in here. You guys can see you have your oil lines and all the fuel tank stuff too. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Somebody in the comments somebody mentioned that after seeing my video they'd rather just pay a mechanic to do it, and I understand. This is not, it's not fun. All right, if you don't have the proper tools, you could definitely get somebody to do it for you. All right, so we got the flow sensor out. Now let's try it again. Do we have enough clearance? I think we do. Yep, now we got the clearance. So it's coming out. And I think we have all, I believe we have everything already unplugged. So you guys are probably thinking, wow, that's the hard part. No, I think the hard part is pulling this thing out, because it's this really tight fit. So there goes the final bolt. Now comes the hard part. This is the difficult part. Pulling it out. This is where it caught up on me last time. Come on. Because you also have the fuel rail as well. Maybe, can I pull it out? I think I've seen somebody pull it out without removing the fuel rail. But I think right now it's getting dark. I think I'm gonna have to remove the fuel rail. All right, let's pull off the fuel rail. So maybe if we loosen it, maybe we could tilt the fuel rail up. No, I think we have to remove it. I mean, you might be able to get it. I think you might be able to squeeze it out, maybe. So this one, you just pull this up and it pulls out the injectors at the same time. Let's see. Maybe there we'll be able to get it out. There we go. So you just have to tilt one of the injectors to the side. And we are out. So there's your intake, your flanges, your O-rings, and there's your intake. Alright, so now let's go ahead and transfer these parts over to the new intake. Alright, so it's getting late. I'm gonna have to leave the bike like this for tomorrow, because you guys can't see what I'm doing anymore. So I went ahead and used some shop towels, disposable towels. Just put it in there so you don't accidentally drop anything. So we're gonna leave those in there, and work on the intake inside, set up the injectors, and then install everything, put everything back together tomorrow. Alright, so excuse the mess, of course, obviously. So let's go ahead and pull off the fuel rail, because we have to remove this and put it on the new bike. If you're wondering, you just push underneath the injector like so. It's just to kind of help you assist pull it out. Push on that, and this comes out, of course. So we're going to transfer this over, and then we're going to transfer over the sensor as well. But remember, we have new injectors. So I was looking at the injectors, and these actually have more ports. So I'm not even sure, you know, which is actually an upgrade. This one only has 4 ports. This one's got, it's got 8 ports or 6. I think it's got 8 ports. So you would think this one would flow or automize better, right? This one only has 4 ports. Yeah, I don't know, you guys can let me know in the comments. So anyways, these are the new injectors, so don't mix them up. Well, if you mix them up, then you know. 6, 4. These ones also have the new O-rings. So you would just pull these out. Alright, so that's pretty much it. You pull out the old injectors, and as far as installing it, just move on over to the new one. Alright, so we have the new injectors. We're gonna just slide those in, of course. I wonder if you should use oil, just a little hint of oil or something, so it doesn't. No, it went in there pretty easy. There's one. There's the other one. Remember, if you're using your old injectors, the red O-ring goes on the bottom, the black O-ring goes on top. Just slide this one inside as well. And then, of course, you have these little slots. So align the slots with the injectors, and then just push until it's seated. That looks pretty good. That feels pretty solid in there. All right, and I think we're gonna install this last because of how tight everything is. So then this kit has the O-rings. So this is what's provided. Of course, you can use your old stuff, but if you have the new O-rings, you might as well just use them. So these are the ones that go onto the intake. So then I'm going to show you here because it's going to be tough to do it inside. So obviously you want to put this in there where it kind of interlocks, and it locks in like so. Is that on camera? Alright, so pretty much as soon as you bolt this on, it's going to grip the intake and it's going to seal. So that's how you put that in there. And then we have this opening on the back so we could attach to the bolt. And then we would just slide that in there onto the bolt, and then we could align it like so. Alright, so let's go ahead and do the other side. Grab the flange, make sure the opening is towards the rear of the intake. Grab your new O-ring and just squeeze that in there. So squeeze that in there, and then try to align those rear openings, and then we're pretty much ready to install the new intake. Alright, so we're back out here. Of course, I removed the towels that I had in here to protect the heads. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave these two bolts on the rear. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. There's like so I'll tilt the camera this way so you can probably see. Maybe I gotta clean the lens. So we're gonna leave these two bolts inside, the ones that go on the intake, because that's where the flanges catch on, and we're gonna go ahead and pull the ones in the front. So we gotta pull these out so we can put this inside. So try not to drop this inside of your heads. All right, so we pull these out. Just try to make it as easy as possible, because of course all of these lines are gonna get caught on the intake. So we leave those two inside. What I did with these ones is I just kind of pulled them out to the point where they're falling out, and then I just threaded them. So you see that they're already coming out, so you just thread them a couple times. That way they're not moving and stuff when you're trying to install the intake. So they're in there just enough so they don't move, and they could actually catch the intake, the flanges. So they're slightly in there. You can see that they're still moving a little bit, and then once of course we have everything seated, then we go ahead and proceed to tighten everything down. I think we're in there. Now we gotta put in the, let's see if we can make all of this fit in there. But let's check the back. Let's see if the flanges are seated properly. And it's in there. You guys can see the bolts. Everything's in there, so we're good on this side. Maybe we can put the injectors and the fuel rail on from this side. It'll be a little bit easier. I think we might be able to do it. Alright, so that's in there. Leave everything loose. So the fuel rail's inside, the injector's inside. Now we gotta push. We gotta push those inside. Make sure the injectors are still lined up. It looks like they are. Gotta put that in there. That looks like we're good. So now let's thread. Let's thread these bolts inside. Alright, so you always want to, you know, finger tighten these so you're not cross-threading anything. You're not forcing anything inside that you're not supposed to. I think everything's seated properly. So what we're going to do is we're just going to evenly distribute how tight these are. So I'm just going to work on these first on the front because I'm already here, and then I'm going to go to the back, and I'm just going to look at where the bolt kind of sits at. I want it kind of resting. I don't want to tighten it. I just want to make sure all 4 bolts are seated properly. So go to the back and then just repeat. Then once we have all the bolts kind of seated where we like them, then we're going to start torquing these down. All right, so these bolts are already tightened. I'm gonna go ahead now install the mass flow sensor back in. So there is a torque spec for these. I think it's 20, I think 30. I think the mass flow sensor, if you guys really want to be anal about it, I believe it's 25 inch-pounds. I'm just doing it good and tight. And as far as these ones, I believe these are 30 inch-pounds. But again, good and tight is enough. Alright, so let's go ahead and install our connectors again. Mass flow sensor, make sure you hear the click. It's fully seated. Lock that in. Same thing for the injectors. Remember, the gray one goes to the front. The black one goes to the rear. And I don't know. There we go. Click. And then the rear one. Come on. Alright, so we are all set. Pretty much all set. We gotta remove this. Alright, do we have to put this back in there? I think we do. Man, maybe it would have been easier to pull it out before we went ahead and put that in there. Alright, so I'll probably use a blade or something. Let me go grab some grips to pull that off, and then of course we're gonna put that back in there. That one goes back in there. Alright, so we got this out. It took a minute. Now we gotta slide. I don't know if this is a vacuum line or I don't know what this is, but we slide that in there. So it's exactly how we left it. And then of course we get our throttle blade control, put that back in there of course. You hear it click and then you lock it in there with that. And we're pretty much at this finish line. Now we just reinstall your air breather. You know, whatever air breather you have, you reinstall it the proper way, of course. All right, so now we go into the other side and then reattach the bracket. You always want to, like I mentioned, you always want to hand thread these. Make sure they thread properly, because if you do it with the ratchet, you might not be able to tell that they're going in there by force. You might cross thread these bolts, so you're just gonna make a mess. So always, you know, get that habit of finger threading everything, just to make sure everything's, you know, properly threading. I know this one's all the way inside, so once it's threaded, of course you could start cranking it down. These are all finger. These are all ready to start threading. Just make sure everything's good and tight. I'm sure there's a torque spec for these, I just don't know. And besides the fact that I think I'm not even supposed to be giving you guys the torque specs, because then that would make me responsible for your guys's installs. Just make sure it's good and tight. We have thread locker, of course, thread lock, Loctite. Go ahead and install your fuel pump again. Make sure you do that before you install your fuel tank. Alright, so we heard it click. You heard the click, of course. Now we got to put our fuel line back on. Let's remove our aerosol that we have in there. Move that out of the way. Lower this, of course. And this thing is heavy. Same thing, kind of like a cup link. Move up on the sleeve. Let's see the camera. Get a load of the camera. There we go. So what we're doing is we're pulling this up. You see how it kind of goes up? I don't know if the camera's gonna. So you're gonna You're gonna hold this up and then push the fuel line back in. Let's find something where I could just rest it enough. There we go. You guys can probably see a little bit better. All right. So once again, make sure you have enough room. Hold that up, push your fuel line back in, and then you'll hear it click into place. There we go. So that's in there. You have a little bit of fuel coming out, but wipe it off. And I think we're done. Now we gotta install the air filter. Alright, so we're evenly installing these bolts, the ones that go on the throttle body and the ones that go on the breathers. So these are, they're not tying at all. Alright, so we're doing these all at the same time, just to make sure the throttle body and the bracket all sits flush. You see how it's still moving? And I'm not sure if you guys were able to pick up on that, but the bracket's still moving, so you have to make sure that you thread these evenly, because you will break something if you tie them down just one side. So these are sitting now. You can see there's a gap over here. So now we just gotta make sure these are seated. You see that? Once these are seated, see, just a little bit of these feel like, all right, these feel, see, now this one's a little loose. This is why you got to make sure everything's seated properly, because if you torque down one side, then it's going to be bolted like this, and then once you start threading this down, you're going to notice that it'll stop and you'll believe it's fully seated or it's fully threaded, or worse, you might even keep on torquing on it and you'll end up breaking the bolt, or you break the backing plate. Most likely the bolt. You'll probably break the bolt. And if you break the bolt, then you're pretty much screwed trying to get that out of the breather. Alright, so we're pretty much done. That's the install of the massive 64 intake Screaming Eagle. We've already checked all the lines. We went ahead, you guys saw, we replugged all the sensors and the blade control and everything that needs to be installed properly. We're pretty much finished. Now we gotta load the tune. So we're gonna turn on the bike and we're gonna load the tune, and we're waiting for this to boot up. Man, I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, guys. I'll probably have to move it around a little bit.
That's what they told me here.
All right, let's lower that. So it looks like we're gonna have to get in here. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. I don't know. So we're gonna exit, then we're gonna back, program vehicle, load tune. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up. Custom tunes, and then we are going to go to upgraded PV TS 114. This is the one from Fuel Moto. So that one's the Fuel Moto. So we're gonna select that one. That's for the 64 intake throttle body. We're gonna select that. Select. There we go. Select. So here's the information. Strategy 823, that's all Flo Moto, I don't know. 2018 Softail SNS 475. So continue, flash, and you're gonna let it do its thing. You're gonna hear it turn off and turn on, of course. And then you're gonna shut it off for 20 seconds. So do not turn it off right now. It's loading the tune, or the map, or the flash, or whatever. So I wonder if you guys can see. Preparing ECU. It's doing its thing. Let's take it a minute. Alright, here we go. Do you want to reset, learn fuel trim values? I don't have wideband O2 sensors. So let's hit no. I don't want to mess with anything. This is completely from Flo Moto. So it's now writing the flash, and then of course, like I mentioned, you will have to shut it off. I wonder if maybe if I have the camera like this, you can't really see what's going on. So we're at 26% complete. We're almost there. I don't know. How do you? Because I can't really see it on the camera. Maybe if I have it this close, it's tough. We're at 58%, 60%. We're getting close. Do not turn it off, like I mentioned, until you're prompted to shut it off. And we're pretty much done after this. I'll make a whole video on what to do, or what's the next step if you want. I think I'm gonna keep the Flo Moto tune for a while, I believe. So it's restarting the ECU. Okay, so please turn the key off and wait 10 seconds before turning it back on. So we hit okay. Now we shut it off and we give it some time. So count 10 Mississippi. So that's 10 seconds. We can now turn it back on and see how everything's functioning. Let's see if you guys can see. So the tune should now be loaded. I don't know, you can't see, I can't see anything on this thing. Alright, so those are my gauges. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Alright, so that's pretty much it. That's the install of the 64 Harley Screaming Eagle intake with the throttle body and the 5.5 injectors. Man, that was some real nasty start. It was extremely loud, aggressive, but like I mentioned, this is all from Flo Moto. This is the way they set it up. I'm just wondering what my fuel range is going to be. Currently with the tune that I have, that was tuned here locally, I'm getting about 25 miles per gallon. It's a mild tune. I'm not really happy with it, so we're gonna ride this for a couple 100 miles, see how it's responsive around the 3,500 mark. Everything looks good, no leaks, no nothing. Everything looks like everything's working properly. So I'm gonna be riding this for the next couple of days. So stay tuned for those follow-up reviews. I'm gonna compare it to my $600 tune that I got here locally. We'll see if you know, eventually. I really don't know if I'm gonna get this tuned with my local tuner. I'm just, you know, the $600 or $800 potentially what it might cost. I'll, like I said, I'll make a whole video on it. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching this install. Life's risk. Get out there and ride. Later.